Okay, we have a microphone here. Welcome. It's so good all of you joined us. And just first of all, I want to say a special thank you to the Melaleuca team, Mr. Van Sluth, and all that have just done a tremendous job to just make this all happen for us. And we thank you all for being here tonight. Just three brief points that I want to make as we get things started. And the first is I'm going to ask for your help and your participation in. The first thing I'm going to ask you to do is to think of a number between 1 and 10. Just think of a number between 1 and 10. Keep that in your mind. Now double that number. Okay, after you've doubled that number, add 8 to that number. Add 8. So you got a number between 1 and 10, you doubled it, now you add 8. Now you divide that by 2. Okay. Now with what you have left, you subtract your original number from that. Okay, after you've done that, now we're going to identify a letter with that number that you have remaining. Like if 1 is A, 2 is B, 3 is C. I want you to take your number and think of a state that starts with that letter corresponding with your number. Okay, got that? Now with the second letter of that state, think of an animal. Now think of a color associated with that animal. The only problem is there's no gray elephants in Delaware. My first point, the first principle I want to share is sometimes, if you know the method and you know the formula, things that seem kind of out there or not possible are very possible. And so many of the things that we do as blind individuals, as far as just everyday tasks, we've learned alternative techniques and skills to do the very same things. Now, they may look quite different. We may approach things in a completely different fashion, and they might look awkward to the side of it. Doing things non-visually, we develop skills and learn techniques that allow us to do everyday things because we know a methodology behind it. There's a reason for why we do what we do to accomplish the same things, whether it's cane travel techniques or just skills around the house or what have you. But what about BHAGs? Who knows what a BHAG is? It's a big, hairy, audacious goal. Okay, so what if you have a big goal that's out of the norm maybe, that's not your usual expectation? What do you do about that if you're a blind person? Well, let me start here. In Genesis 1, God said, "Let there be light," and there was light. And he saw that it was good. In John 8, Jesus declared that I am the light of the world. If you follow me, you will not walk in darkness, but you will have the light of life. Well, there was a business philosopher from Idaho named Jim Rohn. He said, there's another kind of light as well. There's illumination from words, and words that lead to thoughts, and thoughts that lead to ideas. And it can illuminate our minds to possibilities and solutions to problems that we may not have ever thought that we could overcome. In May 25th, 6 days before I was born, President John F. Kennedy declared to our nation that we were going to send a man to the moon before the end of the decade. Now, many around the world and even in our own nation thought that's crazy. That's impossible. And that just can't happen. Who do we think we are to think that we could accomplish such a tremendous feat as that? And, but, you know, after all, it had only been a few decades before, and the Wright brothers managed to get a flying craft up in the air for a whole 12 seconds. And here we think we can send a man to the moon and bring him back home. Well, fortunately, there were people that said, yes, we can do that. We'll set on a mission to accomplish that. We're going to find ways to overcome the challenges and the problems to do that. And after many years of individuals testing different systems, putting their pencil to paper, so to speak, and trying things and exploring possibilities, these things, many of these problems were overcome. In fact, one of the gentlemen, our guests in this room, helped develop the propulsion systems for the lunar lander and the Eagle, both to descend to the moon and to ascend once they needed to go back and connect with the lunar lander to come home. Well, on July 20th, 1969, the Eagle, the lunar lander, landed on the moon. Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong stepped out. They walked around the moon. They hopped around the moon. They planted an American flag. They collected samples and rocks and returned back to Earth. Sometimes when we, as blind people, think, well, you know, I would love to do this in life. I would love to accomplish that. But it seems like just such an incredible, audacious goal that, I probably can't do that. Blind people aren't supposed to do that. Well, the second principle is that with effort, with thought, with determination and hard work, and maybe a little creativity, and maybe even sometimes collaboration with others, you know, we have been able to accomplish many things blind people have. And we should not limit ourselves just because maybe someone else hasn't done it before. Or maybe a lot of people might say, you know, that's not possible for blind people. You're not supposed to be able to do things like that. I recently read a book. I can't believe I hadn't read it before. I knew the name, about a blind doctor. And if you want to read an incredible book, read the book. It's called The Blind Doctor. Jacob Balaton was his name. He graduated with honors, top of his class, from Loyola Medical School, or just before it became that. But he was incredible. He became such a tremendous and recognized authority on heart and lung problems. He used different techniques. He fine-tuned his senses to do things a little bit different than, might be a little unconventional. But he was good. He became, though, when he approached others with the idea, almost everyone told him it was impossible. There's no way. You cannot be a blind doctor. But yet he worked, he earned, he saved the money for tuition. He overcame the obstacles. The medical school, the dean of the school says, no, we're not going to give you any help. We're not going to let you. We really wish you'd go away. But if you pay your tuition, well, I guess you can come in. Well, through much hard work and effort, and much like the goal of landing on the moon, he just would not give up. He was determined, and he accomplished that goal. But there's so many other examples like that. So the second principle is simply that if you really work hard at something and believe that you can usually almost always find a way to accomplish that goal. Now, the third principle is quite simple, and that is that really the biggest obstacle that we face as blind is not the loss of sight. It's the low expectations of those around us. Sometimes it's the blind people themselves that have the low expectations. If a child is brought up who's blind to think, well, you're just going to be limited in life. There's not much you can do, so get comfortable really doing nothing. Well, that child is going to grow up with very low expectations and limited possibilities because he's not going to believe that he can really do much. But yet the truth is, we know, because we really stand on the shoulders of giants, of so many that have gone before us, that have, gone through and plowed the fields and made the paths through the through the wild, to show us that these things can be done, that there are ways. And we have, over time, now there is such a resource and availability of techniques and skills, not just technology. Technology is kind of a double-edged sword. We need it, but it's a curse sometimes too. But basic skills for life, for things we do every day, we have developed techniques and skills that we all need to learn. You'll discover that blind people in their journey of life are at different levels and different places with learning those skills. As I've lost more sight the last few years, I'm going back and I'm having to relearn some skills that I learned when I was young. But others have never had the opportunity to learn those skills. Others are quite proficient in many, many of those things. So the National Federation of the Blind, as far as education and training, really are focused in two areas. One area is in obtaining those skills that are kind of unique to blind people. The reading the Braille, literacy, cane travel skills, mobility skills, life skills, that learning to do things in a non-visual fashion. And we start there with, in fun ways, with young folks, youth, with summer camps, which you're going to learn more about just a little bit. All kinds of activities, but also training centers for adults. We advocated, and we throughout different states, and including Idaho, to establish a Commission for the Blind, a state agency that's focused on providing these kind of skills and training for adults, with the philosophy that with hard work and determination, you can live life pretty much to the fullest in the way you want. But also the second part of that is the area that we focus on is really conventional education and technical training for the marketplace. We want to be competitive with our careers. We do want to have the opportunities that everyone has in our nation. And to do that, we need to have access to higher education, to public education, to private education, to technical colleges, what have you. And so we work hard in making that possible as well and advocating for that. So anyway, in closing, I just want to say thank you again for coming. I hope you enjoy learning a little about us and meeting some of the wonderful people that are part of this organization of all ages, and enjoy the meal. Thanks.